Highway 243. A seemingly innocuous stretch of asphalt, yet it carves a path through the rugged, sun-baked landscape of Riverside County, California, holding within its curves and shadows the echoes of countless journeys, both ordinary and tragic. But in 1979, this isolated route became an unwilling accomplice to a dark secret, a silent, unyielding witness to a crime that would cast a long shadow over the region for decades. It was a secret whispered on the wind, etched into the very soil, a cold case that would linger, unresolved, a file slowly gathering dust, heavy with unanswered questions. Her name was Esther Gonzalez, just 17 years of age. In the bloom of youth, vibrant and full of life, her spirit as bright and warm as the California sun. Dreams danced in her eyes, aspirations of a future brimming with promise, a path she envisioned leading towards a life of purpose and compassion. She dreamt of becoming a nurse, her heart set on healing, on offering solace and care to those in need. But fate, in its cruelest twist, had a different design. On an ordinary day in 1979, Esther's bright future was extinguished, snuffed out with a brutality that defied comprehension. Just off this desolate highway, amidst the scrub brush and sun-parched earth, Esther's body was discovered. The scene was a tableau of horror, a stark testament to the violence she had endured. The details of her murder were disturbing, a grim inventory of human cruelty. Too gruesome, too unsettling to fully articulate, they spoke of a heinous act, a violation that ripped through the fabric of a community and left behind a legacy of pain. Her young life, brimming with potential, was taken with a chilling, almost casual disregard, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. The initial investigation in 1979 was launched with fierce determination. Detectives, driven by a sense of urgency and a commitment to justice, descended upon the scene. They meticulously scoured the area, inch by painstaking inch, searching for any clue, any whisper that could lead them to the perpetrator. Witnesses were interviewed, their accounts carefully documented, each statement scrutinized for a flicker of truth, a hint of deception. Every lead, no matter how tenuous, was pursued with relentless vigor, each possibility explored, every avenue investigated. Yet, despite their tireless efforts, despite the intensity of their initial pursuit, the case faltered, it stalled, and then it went cold. The perpetrator, shrouded in shadow, vanished as if swallowed by the very landscape, leaving Esther's family and the entire community adrift in a sea of agonizing uncertainty. Years bled into decades. The file documenting Esther Gonzalez's murder, once vibrant with active investigation, grew thicker, heavier, colder. It became a repository of unanswered questions, of faded hopes and fragmented leads. The vibrant energy of the initial investigation dissipated, replaced by the chilling stillness of unsolved mystery. Leads, once promising, withered and dried up, offering no path forward. Witnesses, their memories fading with time, moved on, their lives continuing, while Esther's remained frozen in that tragic moment. Hope, once a flickering flame, dwindled to a mere ember, threatening to extinguish entirely. The case of Esther Gonzalez became a haunting reminder of the unresolved crimes that linger in the shadows, the justice that remains perpetually elusive. A stark testament to the limitations of even the most dedicated human efforts in the face of impenetrable darkness. For Esther's family, the silence was not just the absence of sound, it was a crushing weight, an oppressive presence in their lives. The unanswered questions, swirling like dust devils in the arid landscape, became a constant, gnawing ache, a persistent reminder of their enduring loss. As Martha Rodriguez, Esther's sister, would later recall, the silence was deafening, the void left by Esther's absence immeasurable. They carried the weight of unknowing, the burden of a justice denied for far too long. But even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the human spirit, fueled by an unwavering desire for justice, can persist. In the relentless pursuit of truth, hope, against all expectations, can be rekindled, often in the most unexpected and transformative ways. Decades after Esther Gonzalez was so cruelly taken, a scientific revolution was quietly unfolding, a transformation that would offer a new beacon of hope for cold cases across the nation. In the sterile environments of forensic laboratories, a new tool was emerging, a groundbreaking technique that held the potential to breathe life back into even the most frigid of unsolved mysteries. Forensic genealogy. This innovative approach, leveraging the power of genetic science, promised to unlock doors that had remained stubbornly closed for generations, offering a pathway to answers where conventional methods had failed. Forensic genealogy operates on a principle of familial connection, a sophisticated method that uses DNA evidence not to directly pinpoint a suspect, but to meticulously construct a family tree. Imagine a vast, intricate web of interconnected lives. This is the essence of genealogical databases. By comparing DNA recovered from a crime scene, often minute, degraded, and seemingly insignificant, to these expansive public genealogy databases, investigators can embark on a remarkable journey through time and lineage. They begin by identifying distant relatives of the potential perpetrator, tracing faint genetic echoes across generations. Then, through painstaking genealogical research, a process akin to detective work through historical records, family histories, and public archives, they meticulously narrow down the branches of the family tree, generation by generation. Each step is a painstaking process of elimination and deduction, a meticulous sifting through names, dates, and relationships. Slowly, painstakingly, the family tree begins to reveal its secrets, guiding investigators closer and closer to the source, until, finally, they arrive at a potential suspect. It is a complex, time-consuming endeavor, demanding patience, expertise, and unwavering dedication. But in the hands of skilled investigators, forensic genealogy becomes an incredibly powerful instrument, a key capable of unlocking the most stubbornly zombie doors of the past. Detective Ray Miller, a seasoned veteran of the Riverside County Regional Cold Case Homicide Team, understood the promise of this new technology. For detectives like Miller, cold cases were not just files. They were unresolved stories, lingering injustices that demanded resolution. As Detective Miller explained, these cases are never truly forgotten. They are revisited, re-examined, meticulously reviewed, each detail scrutinized again and again, always with the underlying hope for that elusive break, that single, overlooked piece of evidence that could finally illuminate the path to truth. In the Esther Gonzalez case, that potential break lay dormant, waiting for the right moment, the right technology to unlock its secrets. Investigators had preserved crucial evidence from the original crime scene, DNA, a silent witness preserved across the decades. But in 1979, the year Esther was taken, DNA technology was still in its nascent stages, a promising field yet to realize its full potential. The available technology at the time was simply insufficient to definitively identify a perpetrator. But decades later, the landscape of forensic science had been irrevocably transformed. With renewed hope, Detective Miller and his team turned to forensic genealogy. They submitted the decades-old DNA evidence recovered from the Esther Gonzalez crime scene for this advanced analysis, entrusting the fragile genetic material to the cutting edge of scientific investigation. And then, they waited. The process was intricate, demanding, and time-consuming, a delicate dance between science and history. Weeks turned into months as genealogists painstakingly combed through databases tracing ancestral lines, searching for those faint genetic echoes that could lead them closer to the truth. And then, the breakthrough. A hit, a connection, a distant relative identified through the complex algorithms of forensic genealogy. It was, as Detective Miller described, like discovering a single shimmering thread in a vast, intricate tapestry. But it was a thread, finally, that they could grasp. A thread they could begin to pull, hoping it would unravel the secrets of the past. That single thread led them to a name, Louis Randy Williamson. A name that, for decades, had remained unconnected to the brutal murder of Esther Gonzalez. A man who had lived and died, seemingly unnoticed in the annals of this cold case. But the genealogical research began to paint a picture of Williamson, slowly, meticulously constructing a profile from fragmented historical records. His family history was traced back through generations. His movements around 1979, the year of the murder, were painstakingly reconstructed. It was a digital resurrection of a life lived in the shadows, a life now thrust into the harsh glare of investigative scrutiny. The genealogical research unveiled details about Williamson's past, fragments of information that hinted at a darker side, capacity for violence that had remained hidden, undetected, for decades. It was as if the very DNA was whispering secrets, revealing truths long buried beneath the surface of time. Detectives, armed with this genealogical breakthrough, embarked on a meticulous process of verification, painstakingly corroborating every detail, every connection revealed by the DNA. They learned that Louis Randy Williamson had indeed been residing in the Riverside County area in 1979, his life intersecting, geographically at least, with that of Esther Gonzalez. They delved deeper into his background, uncovering details that painted a disturbing portrait. A past that hinted at a propensity for violence, a darkness that resonated with the brutality of Esther's murder. The circumstantial evidence began to coalesce, forming a compelling, albeit still incomplete, picture. But a crucial piece remained elusive, the definitive link that would solidify their suspicion into undeniable proof. They needed a direct comparison, an irrefutable connection between Louis Randy Williamson and the crime scene DNA. They needed Williamson's own DNA. Time, however, presented a formidable obstacle. Louis Randy Williamson was no longer among the living. He had died in 2014, taking his secrets with him to the grave. The prospect of bringing him to justice in a court of law, of holding him accountable in the traditional sense, seemed to vanish with his last breath, receding into the realm of impossibility. Yet the pursuit of truth, the unwavering quest for answers, often transcends the limitations of earthly justice. Sometimes the ultimate goal is not punishment, but understanding. Sometimes closure itself becomes a profound form of justice, a balm for wounds that have festered for far too long. Driven by this understanding, Detective Miller and his team embarked on a final, crucial step. They located Louis Randy Williamson's final resting place. With the necessary legal authorizations in place, they exhumed his remains, a somber and respectful act in the pursuit of truth. From those remains, they obtained a DNA sample, the definitive genetic signature of the man they suspected. And then, the moment of truth. The DNA sample from Louis Randy Williamson was meticulously compared to the DNA evidence recovered from the crime scene. The genetic material that had lain dormant for decades, waiting for its moment to speak. The scientists worked with precision and care, the weight of decades of unanswered questions hanging heavy in the sterile laboratory air. And finally, the results were in, conclusive, unequivocal. It was a match, a definitive, undeniable link across time. Louis Randy Williamson was, beyond any reasonable doubt, the man who had brutally murdered Esther Gonzalez in 1979. For Esther's family, the news arrived after 45 years of agonizing silence. 45 years of living with the unyielding weight of unknowing, the constant ache of unanswered questions. As Martha Rodriguez, Esther's sister, would later share, the revelation brought a complex wave of emotions. Relief, undeniably, washed over them, a sense of burdens finally lifted, of a decades-long mystery finally resolved. But intertwined with that relief was a profound sadness, a poignant recognition that while the truth had emerged, true justice, in the earthly sense, remained unattainable. Williamson was gone, beyond the reach of human courts, unable to face the consequences of his heinous act. Yet, in the simple act of knowing, in finally uttering his name and connecting it to the crime, there was a measure of solace. Knowing his identity, understanding the truth of what happened to Esther, held a profound significance. It meant that Esther, the vibrant young woman whose life had been so cruelly stolen, had not been forgotten. Her story, once a chillingly open-ended tragedy, finally had an ending, a resolution, however bittersweet. The case of Esther Gonzalez is now closed. A cold case, finally warmed by the transformative power of modern science and the unwavering dedication of those who refused to let her story fade into oblivion. Louis Randy Williamson, the man who cast such a long shadow over Esther's life and her family's peace, will never face earthly judgment. But his secret, meticulously guarded for decades, is no longer entombed in silence. The truth, after 45 years of agonizing uncertainty, has finally been spoken, echoing through the quiet corridors of justice. And in that truth, however belated, there is a measure of peace, a quiet whisper of justice for Esther Gonzalez, and a powerful reminder that even in the coldest of cases, even across the vast expanse of time, hope and the relentless pursuit of truth can ultimately prevail.